Well, each week we bring an encouraging conversation from this busy and blessed journey of educating our children at home. While the title is Homeschool Solutions, of course, we don't pretend to have the answer to every question. It's our hope that this podcast will point you to Jesus Christ, that you'll seek His counsel as you train your kids in the way they should go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Homeschool Solutions Show. I'm super excited to be here with you today, and I have a wonderful guest with me. We are thrilled to welcome Jill Simonian from PragerU Kids. You guys, this is going to be a super interesting conversation. She has a very fascinating background. I'm honored to be able to interview her. I know you're going to learn a lot, and they also have some really exciting products that I know a lot of us are thinking about. What are we doing next year? Curriculum, lots of decisions being made, and you definitely need to listen up to some of the things that they have. We are big PragerU fans here. I just love what you guys do. And so, yeah, I'm excited to jump into this conversation. Of course, I'm going to remind you that this is always a great time to pick up a copy of my books. Let Them Be Kids and Memory Making Mom are such wonderful summer reads, sitting by the pool while your kids are splashing around or whatever. Definitely, if you haven't read those, pick them up. They also make great end of year teacher gifts. Throw that in with a little mug and a Starbucks card, and how fun is that? So you can grab those on Amazon, obviously. Let Them Be Kids and Memory Making Mom. All right, so let's hop over to our guest. Jill, I am so glad to have you here. And I know that people have probably varying degrees of familiarity with you or PragerU Kids. Would you just first give us a little glance at your life and how you came to be in this role that you're in? And just tell us a little bit about yourself for our readers.
Okay, sure. Well, first of all, it's so great to meet you, Jessica. And I myself want to get a copy of your book, Let Them Be Kids, because that's one of our mottos here at PragerU Kids.
I will send it to you.
Literally, that is one of our foundational tenets as to why we started PragerU Kids, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. But first about me, I have a very unlikely background, if you will, for many people who have sort of who might be, in this homeschooling, home education space. First of all, I'm a married mom of two daughters. I have two early teenage daughters now. It's so strange to say teenagers, but they are. And I started my career in media about 25 years ago. I was an entertainment reporter on television, and I covered all the red carpets, and I went to all the movie premieres and interviewed all the movie stars and covered the red carpet Oscars and all of this good stuff. And then when I got married and had my first daughter, I shifted into the mom and parenting lifestyle space. And I started doing all sorts of different television segments about family lifestyle and incorporated a little bit of education in there, but it was all very pop culture fun stuff, celebrity driven, most fun products to use as a mom. And then the 2020 lockdowns happened. And at that time, my kids were in public schools. I was previously a cheerleader, fangirl proponent of public schools, naively. My sister is currently a public school teacher in California at a very wonderful district that continues to hold the line, as we say, with our shared values as Americans. And my mother was a teacher, and my grandmother was a teacher, and we had always valued, quote unquote, valued public education out of, sheer naivete. We were, I was raised as a Armenian American Christian. We loved America. And we believed at that time in public schools. And when the 2020 lockdowns happened, my eyes were opened in ways regarding how the schools were being handled at the time, how the government was overreaching in many ways and infringing on the parental choices that, we as parents have the ability to make for our children regarding what they learn, what they see, what they experience. I was very disappointed. I was distraught. I was sad. I was angry. And my husband and I ultimately decided to pull our children out of our once beloved public school because it was no longer beloved. There were too many things going on educationally and socially, and that really conflicted with our values. So in 2020, everything changed, and I started speaking out. And the CEO of PragerU found me online because it was the first time I was really speaking out about education, because it was the first time that I was not employed with a news media corporation. Previously I'd worked for CBS Los Angeles and all sorts of different mainstream news entities. And so the CEO of PragerU Kids contacted me out of the blue and said, "Hey, we're going to start something here at PragerU for families and parents. Do you want to be a part of it?" And I said, "Sure." And I didn't know what the heck the job was. And quite frankly, the CEO brought me on as one of the very first people for PragerU Kids and said, "Let's create something together." And the rest is sort of history. I joined in January of 2021, and we created together our very first shows, which is Otto's Tales, the Storytime Show. If you go to PragerUKids.com, you will see about 75 episodes of a Storytime show called Otto's Tales for kindergarten through second graders. And then we began writing the books that go with them about our American holidays and our American landmarks. And I then created, 3 more shows for our PragerU Kids brand. Otto's Tales, Craftery, which is a craft and history show. I created the game show Guess or Mess, which is biographical history in a game show format. I created the show Unboxed, which is essentially teaching children about federalism and the diversity of states through unboxing clues. And yeah, it's been a wonderful experience. And we have almost, 800, I think that's the last count, resources for families, educational, for civics, history, financial literacy, good character, free on PragerUKids.com. So that's where we're at now. That's a long story.
Yes, I have so many questions and jumping off points, but I do want to say first, just I applaud you for your courage. I mean, to look at your story and the accomplishments that you have racked up, and then to say, really, I'm drawing a line in the sand and I'm doing something different, and it may not be as received well by all of the people that previously have been having
Mm-hmm.
me on and telling me I'm great. And, that took a lot of guts for you. And,
Thank you. Did.
as a parent, we want to do the right thing for our kids, but it's hard, and your courage to make an educational choice for your kids that was going to be inconvenient, that people may not understand. I'm sure there were a lot of questions and maybe even hurt feelings but I always just say, I have a kid with severe food allergies, and sometimes, somebody will ask, "Oh, can he come over and do this?" Or, "I made him this food." And I struggled with it for a long time, and then I realized the trump card is his health and safety, and everything
Yeah.
else goes underneath that. So I'm not going to worry about all the things underneath about how you might feel and what will happen. And so I always have oriented my life around, like, what's the trump card here? And you did that. You put the first thing first. And so just way to go. And I just love how, frankly, I think God is using you and your unique gifts. This is outstanding that you've put together all of these products with PragerU. I'm curious about your family's educational story. How did that end? You pulled them? Did you homeschool them for a time? Did you put them in a school that aligned with your values?
So yes and yes. It's short. It's hard because it's such a, we all have our stories about how we're educating our kids when we sort of opt out of what the mainstream has schooled
Exactly.
us to do. I don't know if any of this is a side note, I don't know if any of your audience is familiar with Sam Sorbo, but Sam Sorbo, who has been a longtime proponent of home education, look her up. She's fantastic. She was the first one who sort of ignited the fire in my mind of, you've been schooled. We have all been schooled to believe that there is one way to do something. And if you veer away from that mainstream perspective, you're somehow like crazy or not, none of that, none of that. So I always, whenever I say the word we've been schooled, I have to credit Sam Sorbo because she's the one who brought that to light. But truthfully, I had been schooled thinking that public school was the only way to go, right? And so when it came time to change the educational choice for our own children, my husband actually was the one that said, "Pull them out." And I was like, wait, what? It's like, wait, I'm not ready for that. And I tell you, I had just started working, well, not just started. I started working for PragerU to launch PragerU Kids in January of 2021. And summertime really was the time when it was sort of like, I call it the come to Jesus moment, like, okay, what are we going to do here? Because are they going to start school at the same public school just because, even though I know it's wrong, even though it's conflicting? I mean, it's literally, it was like I was having physical, visceral responses to them going to this school because I knew that it was wrong for them. And we found a teeny tiny private Catholic school 8 minutes from our home that I never knew existed before. And the
Hmm.
kicker is this teeny tiny little private school was founded by homeschooling families.
Oh,
So
wow.
it is this, and I get weepy thinking about it right now because it is such a gem and it was literally dropped by God into my lap.
Wow.
And it has the philosophies. It really, every single day at that school is about goodness, character, maintaining standards of manners of, whether that's children, when there's literal signs everywhere in the office that says, before you ask for what you need, look the adult in the eye and say, good morning, sir. Good afternoon, man. Things like that. So this school is committed to educating and raising children up with goodness, with manners, with standards, with character, with values, with virtue. One of the mottos of the school is virtue. And then come the academics. And this school happens to lean into the classical
Hmm.
academics, which is a whole other godsend that I didn't even know existed, because and through our, it's one of the things that we really focus on here at PragerU Kids, is that the classical education format truly is the real educational knowledge that children should be learning. Because if they have knowledge with classic literature and biblical values, hello, the Bible, amazing history book, right? It's not just so it was all of these things that this school really drew together. And that's proven to be, I mean, my children still are, they're thriving. I see the way their character is developed. I see the way they are interested in things with a level of interest and discernment that I certainly never had at their age. We
Hmm.
go to art museums. I have no idea what the heck I'm looking at, because I was educated in a public school, but they certainly know what they're looking at, and they have
Oh,
historical knowledge. And I really think it is rooted in the values. And that is why I have such an appreciation and gratitude for the homeschool families who knew that long before any of us did, before I, woke up 4 years ago. In that is that education starts in the home, and it starts with the values, and then the academics grow from there.
I love that. And just hearing you talk about the school and what an amazing place it is, to think that you could have ignored that little voice that was telling you something was off and you would have missed out on so much. And I talk a lot about like your gut and listening to your gut. And I think there's something to that. There's something to the mom gut. And if you're kind of like, I got a hunch about something, I think 9 times out of 10, we listen to that. It's there for a reason. And it may work out so much more wonderfully than you ever anticipated.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing a little bit about that. And so yeah, PragerU Kids, like I just have so many questions. So, okay, let's just say I'm a homeschool mom. Where's the first place I would start with some of that? If I'm like, yes, I am checking all the boxes. What you're saying is like ringing my bell. I'm on board. 800 resources is a lot. Like,
Yeah.
where would you go first? Just give us a little bit of like what's offered and what's out there.
Sure. Okay, so the first place to go is PragerUKids.com. And I really want to say everything on PragerUKids.com is totally free, except if you want to purchase a hard copy book, obviously. Many of our books are downloadable. We have a book series about presidents. We have coloring pages for the little kids. We have book series about builders of America, our Trailblazers book series that we will be launching. I think it will be launched by the time this podcast is shared. Many books are in fact downloadable, but if you want to purchase a hard copy book, that definitely is, that's an outright purchase because it's a hard copy. But if you go to PragerUKids.com, you will see a bunch of thumbnails with all of our different shows. The education levels, so to speak, range from kindergarten to 12th grade. So for our youngest learners, we really start with, I'm biased because it was the first show, but our very first series was Otto's Tales. And it's a storytime series. And what Otto's Tales really focuses on is the good character. And that is like I said, that is the foundation for a good education. So Otto's Tales has the classic folk tales, they're video story times, kindergarten through second graders. They have we have the folk tales, the classic stories that teach a lesson. We have a lot of faith-based content that teaches about teaches our Judeo-Christian values. We have some parables from Jesus. We have Noah and the ark. We have David and Goliath. We have stories about we call it the mighty Maccabees, about the story of Hanukkah. We have stories about Christmas. We have stories about Joshua and the walls of Jericho, faith-based content. We also have in our Otto's Tales series our Today Is series, which takes us through the American holidays. We have our Let's Visit series, which takes us through all the American landmarks. We also have our Let's Meet series, which kids meet the people who keep communities working. So these are all values-based resources to share with our children about hard work, perseverance, equality under God, the values that connect us and unite us as Americans and give us gratitude for God and also gratitude for our country, for America. So if you start with Otto's Tales, if your kids are young, that's where I would begin. But if you go to PragerUKids.com, you can just click through every single content line, and it might be a little overwhelming. I'm not going to lie. It might be a little overwhelming because there is so much there. Virtually every video has a worksheet that you can download for free. It has a lesson plan that you can download for free. These are all supplemental materials. We have guides that can help parents enrich their children's education if they're studying the Constitution, if they're studying our Bill of Rights, if they're studying civics. For older kids, especially middle school and high school, the two most lacking topics I know we're talking to homeschoolers, but the two most lacking topics in mainstream school are civics and financial literacy. And as a mom who sends her children to a homeschool philosophy private, the most important things that our kids should be learning right now, right? How our system of government works and how to be responsible with money. So we have a financial literacy course. I shouldn't say course. It's a video series called Cash Course. And we have a civics series called Street Smarts. And for the older kids, they're not boring. They're fun. They're colorful. They're witty. They're snappy. They're smart. They have worksheets. It's a great way to supplement and enrich your older children's learning as well. So we really have everything if you go.
Yeah,
And
you totally do. Yeah, that is amazing. I'm kind of like, how in the world did you produce this in 4 years?
well, there's a team of
Yeah,
over 30 people.
yeah.
But, like I said, everything we do really is rooted in developing the values.
Mm-hmm.
Because
So,
because merit and responsibility, all those things matter. And if a kid, you figure if a child can read early, that they're going to excel in math later. the hard work, the value of hard work, as long as we continue to teach our kids that perseverance and merit and hard work matters, they're going to excel academically later because those values will be instilled in them early on.
Yeah. I mean, you're preaching to the choir. We still need to hear it. The choir still needs to be preached, but obviously we're like so in alignment with that. And I'm curious, you've been out there promoting this and, engaging with the public on a larger, broader scale and smaller scale. Has your message resonated? Have you seen people are like, yeah, we're on board with this. This is so needed. Have you experienced any backlash? Are there people that are not attacking, but where's the area that you might see pushback the most?
We are attacked constantly by today's most prominent public school figures. And when I say
Wow.
that, quite frankly, the teachers' unions, the extreme leftist politicians who have and organizations who have infiltrated our schools to to muddle kids' values, if you will, in
And
public
and
school.
if I can just stop, I'm like,
Yeah.
why? What could you even find to argue with what you're saying? Like, what are they? You're talking about the values and virtues that our country was founded on and that
Right.
are kind of inherent to human success and succeeding. So I'm kind of like, what's their line of reasoning?
Well, their line of reasoning, quite frankly, is that they accuse us of being bigots. They accuse us of being, you've heard that phrase, white Christian nationalists. I'm Armenian American. Our CEO is Jewish. They call her a Christian nationalist Barbie. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. The bottom line is that, unfortunately, and this really saddens me, most there are many, I want to say this, there are many good teachers in schools that
Absolutely.
are very saddened by what has happened. But as you know, homeschooling has skyrocketed in popularity the last few years. And I think that's an indication of how, regular people, I say like people like me who are maybe blinded to what was actually going on in schools, how our schools have been compromised and hijacked by far left ideals that do not align with what America is. A lot of people have escaped that system because they see that it is corrupt and that it is damaging children, and the values that homeschoolers want to teach children through, intertwined with, obviously teaching them academics, those values surpass, those values have longevity. Whereas the values, not the values, I should say the non-values in public schools do not have longevity. You look at we're attacked constantly. We're attacked constantly.
So yeah, one thing I thought about when you were talking, most of our listeners are homeschoolers, but not all, and some people are just intrigued by the concept or a line of reasoning I've often heard from people who keep their kids in schools that may not align with their values is that they're being a light or they're standing against the tide. And then from the
I've
parent
heard that.
perspective, like we don't want to abandon our community and we want to stay. And I can see the merit of that argument. What would
Mhm.
you say as someone who had your kids in that? How would you speak to someone that was that was their line of reasoning?
I have a few friends that was their line of reasoning. And it was hard for me to understand that after I rescued my own kids, so to
After
speak.
you witnessed the degree of
Yeah.
how contrary it was to what you were
Yes.
trying to do?
Yes. It was very hard for me. And I'm trying to think of a way that I can say this diplomatically. I understand. I would say this as though I were speaking to a friend. I understand that you want to be the light, and I respect that. And it's a very admirable thing. However, why should your children be surrounded by complete darkness when they could be thriving in the light with other children of light?
Boom. Mic drop.
That's as diplomatic as I can get. I've said
Yeah.
it in many different ways with much more colorful language that I'm not going to share here.
Yeah.
But that's what I say. And the thing is that yes, we are called to be the light in darkness, but that doesn't mean that we are not able to rescue our kids out of the house that's burning down in the fire,
That's
right?
so good. So good. Hey, I feel like I could talk to you for 3 hours. Our time is dwindling away, and there's still so many things. I want to ask you this because I am a mom of a high schooler, and so we're thinking about college. A lot of my listeners are too. Do you change your tune with college? Like, how are you looking at that with your kids?
Actually, I kind of do. And this is something that quite recently my husband and I were figuring out what to do because I'll just get very personal with you if it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
My children's school goes up to 12th grade. And we have been so happy with it, and we are still happy with it, but it is a very, very small school. And so there were a few months recently that my husband and I were discussing perhaps with our oldest going into high school now, maybe we should send her to a bigger high school just for a bigger breadth of experience for more people, et cetera, et cetera. And we ultimately decided against it. She will be staying at our school that we love through high school. It is very small, but we decided against it because I cannot deny the feeling of good whenever I go to that school and whenever I attend one of their assemblies or she's in an activity or I visit the class or I volunteer. I cannot deny that goodness that my kids are in right now. And our kids are not fully developed at the age of 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, right? However, in my mind, and my opinion very well may change when I get there in 4 years, but right now, I'm sort of approaching all of this that as keep them in the place of goodness, keep them learning the things that they should be learning, the things that should be taught. We say that a lot of PragerU Kids teach what should be taught, the classics, right? Which this school does. And then, okay, at the age of 18, technically, obviously, kids' brains aren't fully developed until they're about 25, 26 years old, I think it is. We know that as parents scientifically. But at the age of 18, technically is an adult. And that is when I would say, okay, you know what? Apply to different colleges, the big colleges, the colleges that might be outside of our immediate bubble, if you will. Apply to the colleges because as an adult, you can be the light. A child is not fully developed to be the light in darkness, but an adult, that's a different story to me,
Yeah.
anyway. I may change
I
my tune.
Yeah, I think I question mark on our family here too. I think where I lean is, yeah, I agree with you. Like as an adult, the capacity to do that is there.
Mhm.
I went to Grove City College, which is a small Christian conservative university, and
Yeah.
I got so much from that experience that I kind of view it as yes, you absolutely, I think, as an 18-year-old who's been well educated in truth and goodness and beauty, you could stand up against that, but
Mhm.
you would lack some of the things that I experienced in filling up my head and my little bucket and heart with so much. So I'm balancing those two things, and it's probably not a blanket statement, right? Like every child is
Yeah.
different, every family is different, every situation is different. But
Mhm.
yeah, I was just curious your thoughts there. This has been very, very interesting. You just have so many interesting things. Is there one resource, I would say maybe in PragerU or outside, that's been most helpful to you as a mom, like either a book or a podcast or something? Is there anything that comes to mind? I know I didn't tell you in advance, so.
I no, that's okay. And it's interesting. Listen, I'm going to sound like a broken record. PragerU, and this is very, I'm completely
Tooting your own
transparent.
horn.
PragerU Kids has taught me
Hmm.
everything that I wish I knew before now.
Oh,
And
wow.
I didn't realize, it seems silly because yes, of course, I work for PragerU Kids, and we're here on behalf of PragerU Kids, and we're talking. But I tell that to I really do share that sincerely with everyone that I know, because I did not realize how much I had not learned about everything, about history, about how our system of government works, everything, our values. When I first started and we were creating books to teach books and videos to teach kids values, I will never forget the CEO said to me, okay, we're going to start with American values. And silently in my head, I thought, what are our American values? I
Mm.
had no idea.
And you were a well-educated citizen, like,
I
right?
am a quote unquote
Quote
well-educated
unquote.
citizen, right? I mean, I did not know in God we trust, liberty, e pluribus unum, out of many one. I did not know the things that I should have known, and really diving in and doing the research, and it really truly has, I call it this. I've been here for 4 years. It really has been a university for me to learn everything that I should have known by now at this time in my life, and to be able to create these resources to help parents teach their kids what many parents, we don't even know where to start. So I never realized how important it was that kids learn from a historical perspective, actually, that our United States was founded on Judeo-Christian values. I mean, you figure those are timeless values. Those are timeless tenets that have lasted 3,000 years going back to the Bible, right? And I become one of those believers that even if, we obviously have freedom of religion here, right? So no matter what religion one child's, a child's family may practice, from a historical perspective, if you learn that America was founded on Judeo-Christian values from the Bible 3,000 years ago, it has lasted the test of time with morality, with goodness, with how a free society needs to function. There is not chaos, there is order. The Bible established order. We can only function through order. That trumps all of these isms that are being injected in school. Environmentalism, transgenderism, all of these trendy isms are not they're not orderly. They
They're
don't, they
not based on the things that are going to last.
100%, they're not going to last. So, that's where I come from. And I always say, as a parent, I never understood how devastating it was when the Bible was taken out of schools, you know, and look what's happened since that Supreme Court decision in the 60s when Bible was removed from schools. I happen to think it was, big mistake from, I'll just, in my opinion, a misguided Supreme Court at that time, because look at what's happened.
Hmm. Well, I love what you're saying just because when you're homeschooling, it's tiring and um, there's a lot of you're living your hard days in a little bit of a vacuum. And so I hope that as moms are listening today, their brain's probably going crazy thinking of all the ways they could integrate these resources into their year. I know I am. Um, but really, like, it's such a good reminder that what we're doing is important.
Mhm.
And even if we don't do it perfectly, sometimes I've said, um, you're accomplishing so much good just because of where your child isn't. Even
Yes.
if you don't already get all the things done and the boxes checked just by what's not happening to them, give
Mhm.
yourself a pat on the back.
Yes.
And we
And what
really need to hear that at the end of the year when we just feel like we're fading.
Yes, and children learn by example, and the example that the homeschool families are showing their children is self-reliance. I cannot think of a better example than that. I mean,
Hmm.
think of look at, I don't even know where to begin, but our society, our social structure, our systems now are crumbling, for lack of a better word, because very few people are self-reliant.
Hmm.
And just, the sheer fact that, when you are with your children, teaching them, whether you're teaching them values or academics, but you're teaching them through example. And that's, I can't think of just, it's the ultimate calling.
Yeah.
We really are, homeschool families are the beacon building the future of this country.
Oh, I love it. I
For real,
hope so. And another virtue
for
that
real.
I would say I see in homeschooling families that's, I don't know, maybe not as important, but the ability to think for yourself and chart your own path. Like these people are trailblazers.
Yeah,
They're not listening, and that's a skill I want my kids to have because as we learned during the last 4 years, you have to have a brain in your head that's going to think for yourself and not just accept whatever is told to you because it may or may not be true. And so
that's true.
I want my kids to be able to be critical thinkers. And
Yeah,
I think, yes, self reliance and critical thinking, those are two innate traits that it's a good reminder for me that we're trying to finish the math book and we're only on lesson 90 out of 120. And so we need to keep going. But like there's so much bigger something happening.
yeah.
There's a bigger story being written. Jill, it was just an honor to have you here. Thank you for the work that you're doing, the sacrifice that you've made in your career to take this on,
Thank you.
honestly, and to provide these resources for parents. Where can people find you online?
Well, I am on Instagram and X at Jill Simonian, JillSimonian, and also PragerU Kids is on Instagram. So it's PragerKids. We're on Instagram. And yeah, I'm just going to say thank you for using the magic word trailblazers, because that's our new book series, Trailblazers of America, Self-Reliance, Grit, through telling of the expansion of the frontier and the courage and the capability that so many frontiersmen had when this nation was expanding. It's a great read aloud for homeschool families, and you can find it on PragerUKids.com. Trailblazers of America. So thank you for using the magic word. But yeah, find us online and tell us. We love feedback. We love getting feedback about what you're liking, what's working for you, what's not working for you. We love feedback of all kinds, and I just really appreciate all of the hardworking homeschool families doing the hard work, because it is difficult work. And I say I have one foot in it. I 1 foot in the homeschooling world with what I do with my kids at home, even though they do go to a brick and mortar school, so to speak. But I just thank you, and God bless all of you. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jill. It was a privilege chatting. Guys, thanks so much for joining us this week on the Homeschool Solutions Show. You can find show notes and links to all the resources mentioned at homeschooling.mom. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review, and that'll help other homeschooling parents find our community. And finally, don't forget to tag us on Instagram at homeschooling.mom. That's homeschooling.mom to let us know what you thought of today's episode. And don't forget to check out my books, Memory Making Mom and Let Them Be Kids, and my Homeschool Bootcamp course. You can rock homeschooling, and I can help. Check the show notes for all of those resources.